Hey everybody, welcome back. We are on a fun call today with David and Marie Corbeil. They are up at a company in Canada called RVE, and I don't exactly understand what the boxes they make do, so I think we should just jump right in and find out. Hi guys, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Hi guys, nice to meet you.
From an EV owner's point of view, because these boxes say they're going to do some great stuff for me here at home, but can you explain what they do?
Absolutely. So basically RVE for the last decade or so has been fixing some load management problem for EV owners. I was myself an electrician out in the field. I was one of the first Tesla electrician certified to deploy chargers, and I saw firsthand the limitation of electrical panel in households and the lack of capacity at the utility level to power all of those electric cars. So we developed and patented the DCC box, which is a little gray box that all in all, maximize the load available within the household. We monitor all the appliances and we make sure that the car, any brand of car, can charge when there's power available.
Okay, so this is a common problem for a lot of EV owners, right? You get the car home, you're all excited, and you learn about home charging, and then your electrician tells you, your panel's not big enough, I can't install the charger.
That's exactly it. And the worst enemy of electric cars are the transformers in the street. That's really where the bottleneck happens, because typically they are undersized. So if you get, 3-4 neighbors that are looking at each other and all buying EVs, that's where you really quickly have a utility peak demand problem. So the way we've addressed that is to maximize at each household the load available for charging off-peak. And we've been successful in deploying over 45,000 units across the last decade. So it's been a good journey.
So let's really try and dive into the problem here. It seems like, what you're talking about is you have a panel in your house. It's, called the main panel, and it's going to have something like 100 or 200 amps service. In some cases, it can be as low as like 50,
right?
Because back in those days, all you needed was a light bulb.
Why would you need power?
And the light bulbs did use 100 watts. But, so kind of walk me through what the issue really looks like for the consumer when they get their electric car.
Absolutely. So, typically you get an electric car. If you're by the book, you're going to call an electrician to do the job, or maybe you're going to do DIY, but that's at your own risk. So typically the electrician will come in, and the first thing they have to do is a load calculation. So basically they need to look at all the loads that are within the house, the electrical panel, and make sure that if they're adding, let's say, a 50 amp charger, that it can fit within the existing 100 amp panel, which is the most common panel that we see in the US. It is estimated that over 40 millions of those electrical panels will need to be upgraded in the next 10 years, because we're not just electrifying EVs, we're electrifying heating, furnaces, dryers. So there's a lot of constraint in terms of the power that is available now and that will be available in the future. So we're really looking at minimizing the impact of EVs in regards of that panel, and hopefully leaving some room to maybe install AC in the future, keeping that existing panel with global warming being more and more of a challenge.
So how do you solve this problem? Because
they put a fusion reactor in it.
I know. Unless you're creating more power, how do you manage the load? In the situation that you gave, you have a 100 amp panel, and you're going to be pulling 50 amps continuously to charge your EV or thereabouts. So it doesn't leave a lot of load or electricity left to run your air conditioning. Maybe you have an electric range or stove, and then you're going to get ready for dinner, so you got to get the hair dryer going. You're drying your clothes. All of a sudden, you are going to use too much electricity, and pop goes your main breaker, and your whole house plunges into darkness.
Yeah, that's definitely not what we want to happen, right? So, typically on a 50 amp charger, the average American will need 1 or 2 hours of charging per day in order to refill the car. So it's a good practice, to plug every day. So the intent here is to maximize off-peak charging. So typically at night, for one, because it's usually cheaper rates, so it will cost you less to charge your car. And two, because you're not cooking when you're sleeping. So you're basically using, the power that you would normally use when you're making dinner during the night to charge your car.
So what kind of prevents me from doing that now? So like with my Tesla, I can schedule charging. I can plug it in. I think it has to be with the Tesla charger, but it might work with others. And then I can say, charge between, 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Or 6 a.m. Would that not work? Or is there some other problem with that?
As I said, it depends on your level of risk tolerance at burning your house. So if you want to comply with the rules, which you're not obliged to, and comply with your insurance policy, you need to comply with the National Electrical Code. That's where they would require a system that prevents user risk, meaning that maybe one day you would forget to set your timer, right? And that's where you could blow up your main panel. So what the National Electrical Code requires is a power control system or industrial controller like the DCC, or other products out there that will make sure in 100% of situations that this doesn't happen.
So does this box just shut off power to the car if you're drawing too much in your house, or does it somehow limit it?
Because we are compatible with any type of electrical panels, any types of electric vehicle chargers, we're only using a relay switch. So basically we're turning off the power. Then what happens is we keep monitoring what's happening within all the appliances consumption. We typically wait a time of about 15 minutes before we see a drop in power, and then we power back on the car. Typically it really acts as a safety device because, as you said, the customer can set the timer for the night, which is a really good practice. Yeah. Our job is to make sure that when you forget, you don't blow up your main panel.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine if I was a restaurant owner or another business owner with lots of employees who are now buying EVs, that I would want to install a whole bunch of chargers. But I've heard this problem where they go to their electrician or their local inspectors and they say, well, yeah, but your panel's not big enough either. So could I install, let's say, 10 chargers in front of my restaurant and not have to worry that I would be blowing my panel if I used your boxes?
The system you're describing is a power control system, which will have functions of preventing that overload. It could be in a restaurant, it could be in a multifamily application, which is a key focus of ours, is to fix the same problem as in a single family, but for 100 units, all tied together to the same electrical service. That becomes way more complicated, and it's kind of really the niche expertise that RVE has developed over the years.
Yeah, and we also focus on home charging. That's something that we've decided quite early in our journey because over 80% of charging happens at home. So that's where we thought the problem needed to be fixed first in order to help electrification.
One of the other big things we get a lot of our fans emailing us is I live in a condo or HOA where, we just can't do it for what you just said, because if I get a charger, then he'll want a charger, and before long, it'll blow the system. So what you're saying basically is you could install this and it would allow for multiple families to have chargers. They may not all work all the time, but probably sometime during the night they will.
Yeah, actually, that's, I think, what made the success of the DCC is that it can be installed individually in multi-unit residential building. As if you look at, because in multi-unit residential building, there's two ways to power EVs. There's one way, which is powering the EV from your home. And the other is to install a new infrastructure dedicated for EV, but all the EVs are plugged on the same power source. But the DCC is allowed to take the power from your home, even if you have limited capacity. So it can be installed on an individual basis, which is really appreciated from the people that don't want an EV because they don't have to pay for this giant power source that will power all the chargers. So it's you want an EV, get a DCC, fine. But then, so what happened is those individual installation in MERB are often powered by a common infrastructure, which can also be limited. So that's why we also develop another project which is called the Hub. And the Hub is monitoring the component before the home. And if there is too much energy consumed at the same time, it sends signals to all the DCCs to turn off the necessary amount of charger. So we kind of have like this multi-level energy management system in MERB, which you don't necessarily have in-home.
When we're talking about installing chargers, it can get expensive because in many cases, an electrician's going to go, well, you don't have enough power. And so we need to go call National Grid, or we need to call whatever your, electrical provider is. They need to get some guys with trucks out here. They're going to have to, cut down all sorts of trees, bring in new line. It's going to be extremely expensive. I ran into this problem, at the company where I worked at. So many of us were getting EVs because we're all engineers, and even the CEO had a Tesla, and he was like, yeah, let's get EV chargers. And I was like, great. The CEO's on board. I'm like, this is going to be a cakewalk.
Easy.
So then I go and I talk to Tesla, and Tesla says, we'll give you chargers for free. I'm like, this is great. This is so easy. And then I go and I talk to my operations manager, and he says, we don't have enough power on the system. And I said, well, what do you mean? Like, well, this is an industrial building. We have lots of power available. And he said, well, when the HVAC turns on, it's going to go, whoa, it needs to start huge fans turning, giant pumps, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. And we don't have the power for that. So I'd have to go talk to National Grid, and this is going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I went, oh, and then I went back to my CEO and I was like, it's only going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But Tesla's going to give us free chargers. And he went, yeah, well, whatever. I charge at home. Yeah. We don't need to worry about this. And I was like, but I have a Nissan Leaf and I have 60 miles of range. I mean, please.
This really brings up an important point, which I feel like is there's two types of people to install this. Like you said, there's electricians and there's DIYers, but you have to know about this product.
Both of them do.
And I feel like we're pretty smart, and we just learned about it. But most electricians we've talked to, and no offense, electricians, but most of you don't know anything about EVs.
They went to the 1950s school of electrical panel work, and they're just... Well, the grid gives you the power, and the power goes into whatever you're powering.
So how do we get electricians to know about your product?
We join the Now You Know podcast, and we talk about it. I think that's the best way on earth to get the word out. But you're totally right. Awareness and education around, those type of solutions. And we're definitely not alone in that, area of load management. There's a big trend because utilities cannot do service upgrade, or it costs a lot of dollars. It's going to kill a lot of trees if they do it.
And you don't really need it in most cases.
Yeah.
That's the whole point, to get back to when the AC starts, we're maxed out. Well, when is the AC being used? And what other loads are not used during that period? So it really goes down to having the right data to make the right educated decisions on where's the power and when is it available?
So if I'm an electrician and I have this magic box, I now actually open myself up for way more clients because they're all calling me now for EV charging, and I'm having to give them the bad news that it's going to cost more than they think.
Or that it's going to be like, okay, well, we can do a 20 amp charger.
Right.
It's like, but, my customers are only going to be here for like an hour. And it's like, so they'll get 10 miles of range. And it's like, well, that's not that exciting compared to if it was a high power charger that's actually more exciting. Or, in the case of, I want to have a whole bunch of my tenants be able to charge their EVs. Well, we just can't devote that much power to it. So a lot of people aren't going to get a full charge in a night.
So I feel like there's a logistical question here, which is a lot of the ways I learn about new stuff is at Home Depot or Lowe's or one big box store, But I feel like your stuff, I think I saw, is it distributed through regular kind of electrical contractor supply stores. Is that true?
Yeah, so we do have an online store available, but we're also resold through most of the large wholesalers, but that are typically, only available through electrician and contractors. We're not in the big box like Home Depot at this point.
Can a DIYer, because like in our state, homeowners can do their own electrical work, which people in Germany yell at us all the time. They're like, don't do that, you'll die, 220 volts. But so if you are a DIYer and you feel like your jurisdiction allows it, could you buy, the DCC charge controller from you guys and install it?
We would, reroute you towards one of our distributor,
Okay.
where you could buy those units without any problem. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So, I mean, there are a lot of people watching now who I bet had this problem where they were like, well, I just couldn't either install the first one or the second one I wanted to because of this limitation. So where should people go if they want to learn more about your products?
They can just visit us at rve-usa.com. Directly on the website, they can get access to all the relevant information. We've deployed over 45,000 units. So basically, we've helped 45,000 EV owners to prevent a panel upgrade, both in single family and multi-family application. So we've done it. I think we can really help reduce the stress on the grid that EV might add, and hopefully reduce the cost of EV ownership as a whole, and improve the experience as well, because sometimes the alternative to a service upgrade is I'm just going to charge really, really slow. Well, that doesn't give you the best experience if your car is going to take, 50 hours to get a full battery charge. So we can help to bridge the gap between a $10,000 service upgrade and charging in 50 hours. That's really where we can give a big of a push to the EV owners.
So you mentioned earlier that you used to be an electrician. How did you transition from being someone who's installing electrician stuff to making DCC charge controllers?
Have you ever heard about YouTube?
Yeah, I have, yes.
Okay, great. So being, one of the first Tesla electrician in North America, I was seeing rich people getting expensive Tesla. In the early days, they were just selling Model S. And I was seeing the real struggle of those people, leaving their Porsche behind, buying a Tesla, and having a huge struggle to charge at home.
I remember those days. You could spend extra to get the dual charger for the Model S.
Exactly.
And you could charge it at like 120 amps. And it's like
96 amps.
I never heard 96 amps.
Yeah, I think so.
But you needed 120 amp service to get the 96. And I mean, I remember at the time we were going like, this is going to be great. And when you got a Model X, so you're talking about Zach.
I did the same thing.
He didn't go from a Porsche. He went from a rusted out van up to the Model X. But yeah, that was the thing. He went from, and we were like, great, we'll install this charger. And then we looked at the price of Romex back then in 2016. And we were like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. And plus, how would we manage this panel? So we had the same problem. Okay, continue.
But that's the point. These people, they were able to do a service upgrade. Mm-hmm. They had the time to do it. They had typically, the money to do it. And the utilities, they were not so worried about it back then.
Yeah.
What we saw, Marie-Pierre and myself, was, okay, at one point, these cars are going to be more affordable. The Model 3, was coming out. And we knew that the people buying a Model 3 or a more affordable EV would not have enough power and would not be able to do those expensive service upgrades.
Yeah.
So
at one point, the utility would stop saying yes because
exactly. So that was really the spark. And instead of just leaving that on the drawing board, we decided to start RVE and hopefully make an impact.
Have you heard about homeowners educating their electricians? Because I feel like that would also be a good way to get the word out. Because like on the first job where the electrician learns about it and then goes, oh yeah, and it worked and I can do it again.
Yeah, actually. So my brother was working with my father. So electrical contractor. And on my end, I had like another background. I was back then in graphic design and educational technology. And I was seeing my brother and my father being so like the motivation of those two guys in convincing HOA to get one EV installed for their client was just outstanding. Mm. And it was like, there is no way that all electrical contractor will do that. No way. And also I was seeing them do what I call electrical room meeting, which is basically like, go with a board in the electrical room of the building and have a talk. It has nothing to do with the electrical room. They just want to talk about their problem. And it would take like 3 of those talk in order to have one installation done. I was like, no. So I start just analyzing like, okay, what's the decision-making process of a homeowner association in order to accept having one EV charger installed? And that's how we, after that, created an online platform called Merbly with free educational content to help both electrician, homeowner association, or EV owner that are the only one in their building who wants to convince their board. So like a platform where they can have all free resources in order to put in place like a global strategy to have their building ready for EVs. So that's after like how we complemented each other. So he was like the tech guy, and it was like, okay, how we have the tech install on the field, like what are the missing piece? And that's that's how like both RVE and Merbly were created.
Oh, that's great, because I feel like for so many people, it stops at the box. They just see the box and they're like, I don't know what you do with it. And so that must be really helpful for people to see how to continue on with it.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly it. And we do have like a free consulting service. So we take like with HOA 30 minutes to help them like make just a context analysis and give them the right next step according to their context, because we know that our solution is not a one size fit all. So sometimes our solution is not the best one. So with Merbly, we're really looking at being impartial. And we talk about all the solution out there, because even to choose RV solution, the decision maker needs to be sure that it's the right one. So they need to know about everything that is available out there in order to make the right decision. So that's why we're doing this.
Well, speaking of that, so we've talked about the DCC charge controller. We've talked about the hub smart management a little bit, but there's also something you have called SMP smart control panels. And those look really big and really cool, but I don't know what they do.
Yeah, if I get back to what I said earlier, there's 2 ways to power charger in Merb, from the home or from a common power source where all the chargers are plugged. This is where the SMP comes in. So we started with the DCC. But then what we realized is in order to plug the charger to the home's electrical infrastructure, you need either the electrical panel accessible or the electrical meter. And in some contexts, those are very far from the parking spot. So in those contexts, a common power source is really the best fit. So that's why we came in with the SMP. It's a way to have an infrastructure installed, but what it does load management. But instead of monitoring a home consumption, it monitors all the chargers' consumption. And if everybody plugs at the same time, then it analyzes, oh, you've been on charge since 6 hours. I can pause you so this person can charge. So it will do a load management this way, but within the group of charger.
Oh, interesting. So that really would work well for like a restaurant, or like in your case, at your job where there's a whole bunch of Tesla employees, employees plugged in at the same time. I see. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And something that is quite unique is that it's kind of a bring your own charger. So typically the property owner will just install a NEMA outlet, and then they're not responsible for the charger because load management happens upstream. So it's just one less thing that they have to worry about. We all have heard, about cable theft and damaging chargers. So that enables the users to bring their own cable, and when they're done charging, they just move away with the cable, and it's just a plug.
Yeah, I think one of the design criteria about our product was to have product that were compatible with any kind of charger and any brand of charger. So whether it is a plug charger or a fixed charger and the brand. So that's why all the load management is made at the power source and not at the charger itself. It makes sure that people can choose their charger, because when the load management is made by the charger, they all need to be connected together. So they have like some criteria to respect. But now if all the security features are taken care of by the power source, people can bring their own charger.
That's interesting because in many cases, it's going to be the charger that fails, not the electrical infrastructure bringing it over. And when that charger is not owned by anyone who drives the car, it's going to stay broken for a while until you get someone to come around and maybe fix it. But there's very little incentive for in many cases, it's the property owner to want to go fix it because it's just an expense and they figure it's just going to get broken again. But for the EV driver, it's a huge pain. I mean, and I've run into this before. Same company, way off in the distance of the tech parking lot that we had, there was an EV charger, and I used to charge there, and I'd get my extra 12 miles of range in my Leaf so I could go to the store and then go home. And one day it broke, and I was like, well, they're going to fix it within a week. So a week goes by, and it's still broken. And then I have to message the landlord. They don't fix it for another 2 months, and so it's a real problem. So having the charger be part of the EV owner's responsibility, it at least empowers them to have to go fix it.
Yeah.
Correct. It's all about uptime, right? That's kind of the buzzword of the industry now. So we took that approach from a first principle, and how can we reduce the risk of having a broken charger out there? And the best way we found was to remove all the tech at the charger level and bring it upstream closer to where the problem is actually is, which is within those switch gears at the electrical distribution level.
It's so great that you understood the problem by being in the industry. We've talked to so many CEOs, we won't name the companies, that didn't even know what charging was because no one at the company used it yet, And so you really understood not only that EVs were going to become a thing, but you understood first principles, how to get it to be the best it could be. I'm really curious about when you started the company, EVs weren't a thing yet. I mean, we believed they were going to be a thing, but and you probably did, but what if they hadn't become a thing, right? So you're starting this company based on EVs becoming popular, but did you ever have this nagging feeling in your mind, what am I doing? There's gas cars everywhere.
But maybe talk about your business plan that you did in 2011.
Yeah, my first business plan was in 2011, and kind of the idea that we've accomplished now. Then it went dry for 4 years. Then there was a second business plan in 2015, which was almost the same, but with more, of a clear understanding and 4 years of market research. So when we started in 2015, we kind of knew what would be needed, but then there was no car, or almost no car. So we really took our time in terms of how we developed the solution to a complex problem, but also go through, working on regulation, national electrical code, to change some articles, get through certification with UL and CSA. That's extremely painful, but to be by the book, it's the way to do it right. Unfortunately, there's a lot of startups that are starting maybe too late in the game, that are taking some shortcuts and not going through the right certification process. So, by starting really early, we had the time to do the right step and make sure that when we are selling something, we're raising safety for our customers and not, risking their life.
And I also think that because we come from an electrical background, we were also well aware of what is this market look like. So we knew about, electrician buy their product in wholesaler. So we kind of knew all of this. And also we were aware of the risk of what we were doing. And what we, I think, are noticing lately is there is a lot of player that wants to come in the EV charging industry because, there's a lot of opportunity, but they come maybe from a tech background and they are not aware of the risk that load management, you can put things on fire.
Yes.
So it's not just a matter of doing like making some math and say like, oh, I think that's going to be fine. No, you really need to go through a really a certification process, and you need to make sure that everything works well. And I think that right now there is a lot of players who have not done their homework. And that's like from a certain perspective is a bit scary because you're kind of playing against some people that are like they don't know what they're doing. So in a sense,
that's a really good point. I mean, like one of the first chargers we installed, it was a Bosch charger, but it caught on fire. And you're right, because when you're charging an EV, it's not like any other electrical appliance. Almost everything else in an hour, you're done with it. But a car can be charging all night. And even the code in most places still doesn't account for it correctly, right? Because like it's heating up those wires.
They go, well, something that's drawing 30 amps surely wouldn't be running for more than 2 hours. You know, even if it's a washing machine, even when it's drying the clothes, it's not even going to be for that long.
And so many of these Chinese manufacturers we see are not rated at all, and so you think as a consumer, like, well, it must have gone through some kind of testing, right?
It came in a box. It's got this nice, pretty plastic.
It's got a nice manual
stuff. So
they have a nice website too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, look at their website.
Yes.
Really good point. I think you guys are so well positioned now. I can't imagine what it must have felt like in the beginning. You probably were considered as crazy as we were, saying that EVs are going to be the thing.
I know. And now you can buy a used Model 3 for like $20,000.
Right.
I've met people who I never would have imagined would be driving an EV, and you just go like, oh, that's different. What is it? What is the difference? Because I mean, you've been in this industry, it sounds like about as long as anybody. How has it felt going between, back in 2015, 2016 to now?
Like on my end, what I love the most is seeing the evolution of like the dynamic, especially in homeowner association, in condo building. So like, I remember like in 2015, you had like this person who's like, please, I want a charger. And HOA who were like, how do I get rid of this person as fast as possible? That was pretty much a dynamic. And then like in 2018, it was like, oh, we have a request. So it's not negative anymore. And by 2019, it was like, oh, we hear about it. We want to be prepared. So it's like to see all this evolution. And right now, like in Quebec, there is a lot of incentive, like from government. So now we have buildings that are installing all the infrastructures for EV, even if there is just one or two. So like seeing this kind of evolution of mentality is just so nice. And sometimes we have people reaching out from other market, and just by the type of question they're asking, we're like, oh, okay, they're at this stage. Oh, okay, that's the kind of tool you need. So that's, I think, what has been really nice witnessing.
Yeah, and I would add also, we're picking up some projects from past competitors that are unfortunately out of business. I don't know why, but that we're fixing problems of others in order to do the right thing. Sorry. So that's interesting, scary at the same time. I don't know how to feel about it, but we're definitely fixers at this point.
I feel like if robotaxi becomes a thing, which we think it will, then there's going to be a lot more people needing solutions like yours, because they're going to go, I want to be on this network, but maybe my house or condo can't do it.
That's just around the corner, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, it's so exciting to talk to you both. Thank you so much for educating us. So if people want to know where to go to find this great educational resource, where should they go again? Murbly,
MURBLY.com.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. We will check in with you hopefully in a year or so when robo-taxis are driving everywhere and see how you guys are doing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.